Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2003 Toyota 4Runner Limited. Up front is a 4.7 liter V8. Down below is a 5-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this here 4Runner for a couple of reasons. First of all, I recently reviewed the very first year of the 4Runner, 1984, as well as I've done a current year and a second gen 4Runner. So I'm slowly working my way through the 4Runner's history, and I'm excited to check off another generation, the 4th generation. But the other reason I'm super excited is because this is the Limited, which came with a 4.7 liter V8 and is the only 4Runner so far to be offered with a V8. So this is the only V8 4Runner, which is really, really cool, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. But before we get on with the rest of the video, if you are looking to help out the channel, there are a couple links in the description below from our awesome sponsors. One of which is Cash for Cars if you're looking to sell your used car. One is from Fixed, a Bluetooth OBD2 sensor to help diagnose your vehicle, and another from Conplates. Conplates is a suction cup license plate mount for your vehicle in case you don't want to drill into your front bumper. Each purchase or quote goes towards helping the channel, and it's greatly appreciated, so let's get on with the video. But let's get back to that 4.7 liter V8 under the hood. It makes 235 horsepower and 320 foot-pounds of torque. That torque is the important number because actually there was another engine offered here in the 4Runner, a 4.0 liter V6, and that actually made 10 more horsepower than the V8. However, it makes almost 40 less torques than the V8. So at the end of the day, the V8 actually offers more torque for towing, off-roading, things like that. It's really the engine that you would want. It's a 2UZ FE and was first offered here in 2003, but in 2004 it actually got an upgrade to VVT, or variable valve timing. So it actually gets a slight power bump for 2004, but this is the non-VVT engine. Like I said, paired to it is a automatic transmission. It's shifting fine. Last but not least, this is 4-wheel drive. Now it does have a solid rear axle out at the back, but it has double wishbone independent suspension up front. As well as this is body on frame construction, and it has a lockable torsion center differential. So what does all that mean? Well, the 4Runner is designed for off-roading, and it's very, very good at it. That's why you buy a 4Runner against a Highlander. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 3 main gauge pods. On the left is my tachometer, in the center is my speedometer, and on the right is my fuel and coolant temperature. I like the gauges. They are simple. They are very early 2000s from Toyota. They are what I have come to expect from Toyota. Nothing too crazy. Off to the left, I do have a gauge dimmer switch. And on the steering wheel, I have volume and skip track as well as mode. But then I have blank switches off to the right. Now, I do have a cruise control stalk behind the steering wheel, which is kind of weird. I don't know why Toyota wouldn't integrate that into the steering wheel itself. Given the fact that this is the Limited, this is the higher trim level, I don't like seeing blank switches. But the overall steering wheel is, again, something that I would come to expect out of Toyota from the early 2000s. It's this plasticky leather, and it's fine. Off to the left, I do have my controls for that center locking diff, as well as my AC 115 volt outlet, which is actually found in the center console. So there is a wall outlet you could plug in like a regular charger or something of that sort into the center console, and I absolutely love that. Super, super useful. Moving on to the door, I have my power mirrors, power locks, and power windows. Nothing too crazy, although this is the Limited. I get this nice piece of, it looks like a granite piece of trim. I know it's just plastic, but it has a nice texture to it. Now, something I want to talk about with the interior that was pointed out to me by the owner is the dash. This is actually a dash mat. This is a dash cover because the original dash underneath is pretty cracked. And that's a very typical issue with these 4Runners, is when they're left out in the sun a lot, the dashboards tend to crack and warp and all of that nonsense. So this is a dash cover, and if you see a lot of 4Runners for sale with that issue, just know that that's a pretty common issue. Moving into the center, I do have a radio, a tape player, as well as CD player. This is 2003. It's that weird crossover generation from tape to CD. And with the radio, I actually do have JBL speakers on the doors. So that is an upgraded feature that came with the Limited, is that you got the JBL sound system. Down below that, I have my readout for my climate controls as well as my clock. clock settings, things like that. And then I have the climate controls themselves. The climate controls look very, very odd because they're circular like dials, but they're not dials at all. There's buttons. There's 5 buttons on each knob, which I appreciate Toyota going through the effort to make them all symmetrically 5 buttons, but they're just very peculiar looking. They kind of remind me, this is going to be a super dated reference, but there used to be this ball you could buy and then you could flatten it and turn it into a frisbee. That's what they look like, which is kind of funny. Then I have my defroster and recirculating. To the left of those climate controls, I do have my rear window operation. So, like every 4Runner in the past, the rear window can be rolled down, which is fantastic. It's one of my favorite features of 4Runners, and I'm glad that it's also here in the 2003. And then I have my 4-wheel drive settings for 4 high, 4 low, and that's it, because this is all-time 4-wheel drive, as opposed to the V6's actually got multi-mode, so you could put it in and out of 4-wheel drive. This is 4-wheel drive all the time. And then I get a little cubby that moves down. It looks like it would be a lot larger, but it's actually not that big. Then we have cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the 03 4Runner, and it passes. This is the first 4Runner, I believe, to pass the big frickin' bottle test. You know, I think there was a movement in the early 2000s for bigger cup holders. A lot of early 2000s cars seem to pass, and the 4Runner is another one of them. Moving on to the center console, I have the shifter off to the right. This is the sort of jigsaw shifter from Toyota. Nothing too crazy or special here. There's no button. You just kind of have to move it in a weird way to get it into gear. Toyota has used this since the late 90s and still actually currently use it today in some of their vehicles, so it's proven itself, apparently in their eyes, and I don't mind using it. To the left, I do have a little ashtray and a 12-volt outlet inside there, and then I have a couple of interesting switches. I do have my heated seat options, which is a roller dial, which is very nice, and I have my hill descent control, which is nice because this is a early 2000s vehicle. You know, some off-roaders are just starting to get this feature, but apparently it was standard here in 03, which I love. Then we do have the center console. Like I said, there's the outlet in there, and then we have to talk about the seats. The seats are leather, they are comfortable, they are heated, and they are power, which is very, very nice, very comfortable. And again, this is one of the limited options you would find where sports got cloth seats or something of that nature. But speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2003 Toyota 4Runner Limited. A couple of things to note back here. First of all, headroom is good. I actually get this bubble. I don't know if you can tell on camera following my hand. There's actually a bubble that pops up. Gives me a lot more headroom because of the sunroof and things like that. Really, really nice. Legroom is okay. My knees aren't really hitting the seat in front of me, but it's a little closer than I'd like, but beggars can't be choosers. Something interesting is that hanging on this little hook here, I have a remote, and the remote says disc change, tune track, off, and source. It says rear seat audio, which is kind of interesting. So the backseat occupants actually got their own remote for the front screen. Kind of interesting there. I do have a center console as well with pop-out cup holders. These things are giant. Nice that you get that. Otherwise, it's just a semi-cushioned armrest and nothing really too crazy. I'm very happy to see that the 4Runner is a 4-door. Like I mentioned when I reviewed the 1984, they started off as 2 doors. They're really modified Toyota Helixes. So it's really nice to have the 4 doors. I'm very thankful for that. Let's go take a quick look at the cargo space. There's an interesting feature back there, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, so we're on the back of the 03 4Runner, and something cool here is that you can actually hit a button on the key fob and the rear window will go down. Now, that is only to go down. It is not to go back up. But what you can do is come here. I always forget which way it is. There we go. It's off to the right, and it'll go back up, which is great. Coming into the back here, we have a nice and flat load floor. We have some storage back here if you want to put some cargo nets, things like that. But the cool thing is actually on this cargo cover. So fold it up and make a 2-tiered system. So You can either lay this flat or fold it up like here. It sits on these pockets right here, and then you can load stuff up here, load stuff down there. But if you don't want that, you just fold it down like that. That's a nice flat loading floor. And of course, the second row of seats goes down flat as well. Now we got to talk about the looks. And honestly, this isn't my favorite generation of the 4Runner when it comes to looks. I think it is sort of blobby. I think it looks bigger than previous generations. It looks more excessive than previous generations, but the mentality of solid rear axle body on frame is still there, so it is still off-road capable. This is just what cars looked like in the early 2000s, and to be fair, I'm comparing them to the square bodies of the 80s, where 80s cars have a soft spot in my heart, so it's not really a fair comparison. Another funny thing about the exterior that I have to point out is that this is the era where Toyota was offering gold badges on their cars. Pretty much every Toyota in their lineup was offered with gold badges. I don't know why they did this. They immediately look super dated now, but I think it's kind of funny. But now let's get to my final thoughts here on the 4Runner. What do I think? Well, like I said, I've driven a bunch of 4Runners in the past, and so far the story has been the same. These are great off-roaders, and if you're looking for something that's capable and relatively modern, I mean, this car is less than 20 years old. For the time being, it's going to be 20 years old pretty soon. It's still decently modern. I have heated seats. I have a tape deck that I could easily convert to Bluetooth or aux. I think this is a good blend of old and new, where it still has that ruggedness, but it has more modern features. And so, if you're looking for a used vehicle, this would be a really, really great pickup. They've proven themselves. This particular one has 137,000 miles, but that's just getting started. That's just getting warmed up as we've learned, getting further and further away from this era. These Toyotas last forever, so you know that you're going to be getting something that's going to have good reliability, last a while, and is really, really capable. So overall, this 4Runner makes me really, really happy, because now I can check off my list and say, yes, the 4th generation is good, the 1st generation is good, the 2nd generation is good, and the 5th generation is good. 3rd gen, it's all down to you. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to David for letting me take out his 4Runner. This is really, really cool. I'm very glad I was able to get a glimpse of this generation of 4Runner, and I can't thank him enough. He's been absolutely awesome to work with. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.